Welcome back to the 12 Pastas of Christmas. It's the second to last day for this. Tomorrow I've got a big surprise. I'll explain more at the end of the video. So, listen to the end, I guess. I don't know. But today I'm reading you a story simply known as Ice. Because it's cold outside. Anyway, let's get into this, shall we? The world is cold. That is how it should be. Cold. I always dreamed, in caps, of cold as a child. Wait, you live in the Bahamas? See, my parents hated the cold. Lived in the Bahamas, okay. More than anything, period. That was one sentence, more than anything. I don't know if that counts as a whole sentence. And they never let me be cold. I could never leave our 144-degree house in the winter for fear that I would get cold. Oh, I love that word, cold. One word in a sentence. Anyway, I could never take my clothes off for fear of the cold from my parents. Would you have to shower with your clothes on? I had to take literally blistering hot showers with clothes. Okay, with clothes on. Okay, so you just addressed. Thank you. Ruined my joke. I had to wear 3 jackets and long pants at all times. I had to get surgery so I could never sweat, for my parents didn't want me to cool off. I didn't like it. I dreamed of the cold. We're so afraid of the cold, we're gonna give our kid heat stroke. So, one night, I snuck out. I waited for father to go to bed. I flew out from under the blanket. I walked, creeped, to the window. I opened it as quietly as possible and slowly crawled through. I gently made contact with the ground. Excitedly, I took off my jacket. The swish of cold air, was amazing. It was like nothing I had ever felt before. I love it. In caps, it was grand. I wondered why my parents hated the cold. I snuck out into the cold every night for 3 days. But all good things come to an end, right? On the next Tuesday, I was climbing through my window when father caught me. See, you're not very good at sneaking out. In all caps, what do you think you're doing? He grabbed me and threw me onto the floor. He watched me sleep that night. The next night, my parents put straps onto my bed to keep me from leaving. Are they really your family, or is this Stockholm Syndrome? They strapped me extremely tight. It was very uncomfortable, and it would stop. What? Oh, I would make sure. Okay. I sat there as I thought to be sleeping by mom and father. I was thinking, what to do, ... Okay. How to get what I so desperately desire, the cold. I tingled at the thought of cold. It made me feel ... special. This story makes me feel special. Not in a good way. I decided the only way to get the cold was to get rid of mom and father. I like how it's not mother and father, it's mom and father. Clear favoritism here. Because mom, I assume that the phrase mom, or the term mom, is more, endearing, I guess. More so than father. Or maybe it's just because of movies, like, when somebody hates their dad in movies, where the dad is the villain, they're like, father. Anyway, talking about movies. Yeah. Anyway, the next morning at precisely 6:48 a.m., mom let me out of my straps. That's a weird time to be precise. My wrists were red, and the skin was a little bit raw, which would explain why it was red. That made me want to kill them even more than I wanted to initially. My plan was simple. The execution was genius. I sat on the couch all day. He's living the dream. My parents didn't seem to mind. Better off on the warm couch than trying to feel the cool outside air. I just sat there, waiting for the night. That's when I would do it. That night, I grabbed a knife from our kitchen drawer. It was nice and long and perfect. The blade wasn't cold, which reminded me why I was doing this. The cold. I kept saying that to myself. The words made me feel better about this. I snuck into my room as Mom was reddening my straps. She turned and called for me. That's when I struck. Okay. I dove as far as I could. I got her legs and knocked her over. I got on top of her. Marcus, what are you doing? I laughed a little bit, as if she didn't know. I held the knife high into the air and struck her stomach. Blood spewed and flew all over me. Her blood was cool. I loved it. I kept stabbing her, wanting more and more of her sweet, succulent, cool blood. So she's a reptile? I grabbed her hair for support. I sawed off her head. I kissed her cheek and opened her mouth. I ripped the teeth out. Why? For extra support, I ripped the lower jaw open farther. Why? I cut off the tongue. Why? And let the blood pour onto me. Why? It was great. How? I threw the body through the window. You're like, what, 7? My father came in, looking mortified. Marcus, how could you? I didn't respond with words, but actions. I attacked with brute force. I grabbed his hand and stabbed it into his side. You stabbed him with his own hand? Really? He screamed and fell. I pulled the knife out. Wait. And stabbed his arm. Why? I stabbed his arms until they reminded me of Swiss cheese. Cheese was capitalized, by the way. I stabbed his stomach. I pulled out his small intestine and wrapped it around his neck. He was still alive. I pulled the intestine harder and tighter around his neck until there was a crack. His eyes went into the back of his head and he died. Okay. I scooped his eyes out so they stayed whole. I hung them in my room. Gross. I tossed his body. Again, you're like, what, 7? Brushed my hands. I didn't wash my hands. You know, I got out my brush and turned the AC on. I felt very proud of myself. I decided to call my friend Stacy. I would have called her Mom. Sorry, that's an awful reference. She came over and we celebrated. We celebrated with ice. She brought tubs of it. It was great. We sat in the tubs. We sat there as the sub-zero temperatures made contact with our skin. The temperature in the air combined with the temperature of the ice made the experience even better. We laughed and threw ice at each other. That hurts, by the way. I've had ice thrown at me. I've had a cup of water splashed in my face because I told the kid I didn't have any interest in playing Fortnite. Yeah, kids are awful. We laughed and threw ice at each other. Then she left. She probably got hurt from having the ice hucked at her. When she was gone, I made a bed. It was a giant container of ice. I buried myself into it and slept. The next day, I made sure I was never warm. I stayed into the ice until my skin was blue. It was great. I loved it. I took an icy shower. It was just as good. The cold is now my best friend. Why don't you come over and we can share it together? Remember, the world is cold, and that is how it should be. I hated that. It was annoying. Probably because I was doing the stupid voice. Yeah, that was ice. That's all I really have to say about it. That was the story. Yeah. I did promise something special for tomorrow's episode. I will be reading 2 troll pastas that I found actually at the beginning of this series. And I figured that if I'm doing 2, I might as well get somebody to help me. You know, they'd team up for double trouble, as they would say. Who is they? I don't know. So, tomorrow, I hope you're excited for 2 Christmas troll pastas read by me and my friend Wyatt. That's tomorrow. You're gonna see that tomorrow. Anyways, I'll see you next time on Christmas Eve tomorrow. Bye.